Hi gang. So here we are, we're in chapter 5. Now let's talk about what we're going to deal with in chapter 5. Chapter 5, we're dealing with loops. And the two dominant forms of loops that we'll deal with in C# are the for loop and the while loop. Now let's start with the while loop, and it's usually the most common that you'll see at this level of programming. And the logic behind it is, while a specific condition is true, continue to perform some task. Now, this is logic that you should have gotten in COP1000 or the Intro to Programming course. But my analogy I like to use is compare it to a relationship. While she remains faithful, our relationship will continue as it is. If at any point she's no longer faithful, that cycle that we're in will stop. Now, the same thing holds true in the programming logic. Okay? I can ask a user to input values. And if they want to stop inputting values, just enter an X. While the input is not X, let's keep doing this. And at such point when input becomes X, then we stop and we get out. So there's different ways, and we'll talk about different ways to escape out of or break out of the loop. The other loop that we deal with is the for loop. Now, the for loop, it's fairly common that we'll use that when it comes to arrays or lists. And by that, what it means is, for each item in a specific list, let's perform a task. So we're going to perform that task over and over again for each item in the list. Now there's a finite number of items in the list. And once we've reached the end of the list, this cycle, if you will stop. There's other ways that we could write it. For I is less than 10, and then we have an incrementer that will get us through sequentially from our starting point to the ending point numerically. So if I said I was 0, I stop at 10, that'll get me where I need to be sequentially, and I have a finite number of iterations in this cycle. I like to use the word cycle in a loop, or in discussing a loop, because that's something we deal with all the time, is cycles. So this one, it's an easier chapter than we've had in many respects, but we've got new things we're dealing with. Right. If we keep thinking that this is cyclical and we're going through a cycle, going round and round and round, almost like a dog chasing its tail, what is it that causes this cycle to stop, or that causes the dog to stop chasing its tail? We need some trigger to cause the break. The trigger could be, you're going to go in circle 10 times. Once you've reached 10, that's the break. While nobody yells at the dog's going around in circles. And at some point, any point, somebody could yell. So that's the logic behind what we're doing. And as always, go through all the videos that you've got step by step for the exercises. Get an understanding of each one of the skills and the syntax that I impart in those videos. and apply those skills in the projects for each chapter. So I'll see you in the next chapter.